There we go. All right. So good morning again, everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you are joining us live, please comment below. Let us know where you're coming from. If you're watching the replay, we appreciate you taking the time to watch the replay with us. And just comment below and let us know that you're watching the replay so that we know to pop back in and answer any questions that you have. This topic, so we're back with Faith Talk, and the last week going into this week and even up into early next week, I'm super excited for this series. It's been going amazingly. I've been getting so many awesome messages and feedback on everything that's happened. So this series called Faith Talks is really not just talking about the topic of faith, but really how faith speaks when we talk about faith out loud and share our stories of what how faith affects our lives in different ways. For me, for all my guests, and the topics have been so awesome. If you have missed any, the replays are in the group. They're also on YouTube. You can find them there. But this morning, I'm really, really, really pumped because meditation is like one of the gateways for me that really just took my spiritual journey, my life to a completely new level. And so with Robert talking about how meditation really helped him combat and overcome and really just deal in general with depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety are such huge topics. I think that I love that you're a man speaking out about this and that you're sharing your journey in this, because I think it's a women-dominated thing, right? Like so many women talk about depression and anxiety. It's like, okay, but for some reason it's taboo, I feel like, for men to speak out about it. So I appreciate you being here. Please welcome Robert Boucher. He is going to be sharing his story and his techniques and tools and how he really he had faith in meditation to overcome and, work with anxiety and depression. Because I think to some extent, every single person deals with anxiety and depression. So thank you for being here. Welcome to the group. Thanks for sharing, and tell us everything.
Well, yeah, thanks, Monique. Thanks so much for having me here. I guess to start with, as you had mentioned, I guess before in one of the other talks, your group and so many of these other groups are primarily women, and I've been welcomed with open arms, and I'm so grateful for that because I'm learning so much. And as you mentioned, yeah, women do seem to be much more willing to talk about these things than we are as men. I mean, men my age, I turned 48 here on Saturday, and middle-aged men. Right now, suicide is a major issue. We're kind of number one in the demographics of suicide rates. And that's not to say women aren't trying, but men are using methods that are more effective is the problem, right? So there's no second chance with men. So really important that we talk about it. And because it's so important that we talk about it, I want to start by saying this. If you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you're having suicidal thoughts, please get help, right? Call a crisis helpline if you're thinking about hurting yourself or anyone else. If you're depressed, anxious, don't just think you can meditate your way out of it. Please talk to your family doctor. Please, seek help from a therapist or psychologist. Get some help. Just as if if we had a broken arm, right? I'm not completely convinced at this part of my life journey that I can't meditate my way out of a broken arm. Actually, and I'm not convinced that is not possible, but I can't do it yet. Right. And it's the same way with mental health, right? When we're suffering, right, we're not going to be able to immediately just meditate our way out of it. Right. So get the extra help. And that's what I did. Right. I guess to kind of back up in my story here, I think in hindsight, I think there was probably some depression going on for a long time. Right. And it's kind of at a very low level. To some degree, I got so good at hiding it. When other people, people that I've known all my life, or a good part of my life, when I told them about, what I had gone through, I never could have imagined, right? And I'd gotten so good at hiding it, nobody else could see it, and I get so good at hiding it that I didn't see it myself, right? And when you couple that with the fact that as men, we think that we should be able to fix everything, we don't look outside of ourselves for help. It got really bad, I guess is what happened. So in 2013, after 15 years of employment, I was downsized, and kind of went, from a couple of jobs, but selling cars, selling antivirus software, and things that just weren't working out. And so I actually gone back to school in January of 2016, and I think it was around then, towards the end of that term, right around April, that the depression really started, settling in, sort of severe depression. And as I continued through the summer, started having almost daily thoughts of suicide, and it just got bad, and I just started isolating myself more and more from my wife and friends and things like that, until it finally got so bad there in about August that I had to tell my wife what was going on, right? And she immediately said, well, "Here, call our, call my employee assistance, plan, and talk to a therapist," and made an appointment with my family doctor. But I had actually saw some therapists in the past, because, like I said, I think it's been going on at a very low level for a long time. And I'd feel better for a little while, and then it would come back, right? I'd have those points where I just wouldn't feel like getting out of bed in the morning. And I guess to some degree, I just thought I was being lazy, right? And, but I used to drive my kids to school every morning, and so I'd drag myself out of bed and I'd go to work, but I just really be just going through the motions. And so as when I sought therapy this time, I think I got the right therapist, is what it comes down to. And they say when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And she had she, as we were talking, I had mentioned that I had kind of tried meditation in the past. I had, Deepak Chopra's 21 day meditation challenge. I made it through 2 or 3 days and then quit, right? But I didn't. But she said, try it again, right? Oh, you know what to do. Go back and try it again. And she told me one other thing. She said, before you come back next week, I want you to really, really think about what your life mission is, what your life philosophy is, And so I went home and started researching some meditation. And interestingly enough, I saw some Facebook posts about some different things at just the right time to connect me with just the right people. And as I thought about it, I said, well, I want to be healthy. I want to have a rewarding career. I want, my family to be healthy and things like that. But as I continued to boil it down, I realized it really came down to one thing, right? I wanted to be at peace, and I wanted to be able to share that peace with those around me. And that was it, right? The rest of it is just ways to get there. So as I started meditating in about September of 2016, but I wasn't doing it regularly. So, and I was also on some medication, but I also started exercising more, eating better, all of those things that really help. And at that time, I actually ended up on a work term. As I mentioned, I'm currently a student, but I was on a work term through September, December of that year, actually right on into April, as it turned out. And I found that there were times when I was starting to feel a little overwhelmed again, but I, like I say, I wasn't meditating every day. So I made a commitment to start meditating every day, and so I get up every morning pretty much at 5 o'clock before my kids get up, so that I have time for me, right? Because once they're up, I'm making lunches, getting them on the school bus, and getting them off to school. So every morning at 5 o'clock, I get up and I meditate. And there's so many different types of meditation out there, and but what's really worked for me is just Sanskrit mantra meditations. Love them. I've tried different types, and different guided meditations, and I found as I was straying from those Sanskrit mantra meditations, they weren't working as well for me, right? So I think part of what I really like is that quietness, right? That where your mind, you have that opportunity just to quiet the mind. And the more and more I did that, And this is really where the faith starts coming in. The more I did that, the more I realized that I wasn't my mind, I wasn't my thoughts, I was the consciousness of those thoughts, right? The higher self. And I really started to trust in the universe, right? So, to let go of that need to control,
Wow.
right? As I like to put it now, right? Look after your outlook. The universe will look after your outcome. And and that's really how it's kind of evolved. I mean, I've recently actually added some self Reiki to my morning ritual as well. I've been doing that for 4 or 5 days now.
Wow.
That's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's amazing. So I have a couple questions, and you guys, I just wanted, we have a few people watching. So if you're watching, or
Awesome.
if you're watching the replay, if you have questions, Robert and I are super open. So ask anything. If you know someone or yourself is, looking for a different avenue and want to try meditation to help with depression, anxiety, any of that stuff, I mean, we're super open. So ask away, ask any questions that you have. Thanks for joining, Laura Ann. Thanks for the comments and the hearts. So I wanted to ask, just going back to the beginning from when you were talking, I wrote a couple notes. You were saying that you were really good at hiding, that it was probably going on longer than you really, being able to reflect back, you can see that. Do you
Absolutely
think that men are better at hiding it than women? Or do you think it's something that they just don't recognize?
That's a great question, and I guess the problem is I don't know how good that women are at hiding it, so I don't know how to make that comparison. But women do seem to be much more open about it, right? So I think, like I say, I think men and we're evolving, but I think there's still, and I've got some theories about why it is, but they're not really relevant. But I think men are still kind of stuck to some degree between worlds, right? In a world where they grew up where it was male dominated. I'm kind of in a generation. I think this generation, right, is kind of between worlds, so to speak, where their fathers and their grandfathers grew up in a world where men went off to work, supported the family, retired, and that was it, right? And their wives primarily stayed home or raised the children. And we're now into a generation where, men and women alike are working, and men are raising families and women are raising families, and everybody's sharing things equitably. And then that's the way it should be, absolutely. But I think there's probably still a struggle there for men between those two worlds, especially in my generation. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where some of it comes from. So I think the depression's setting in, and they're still putting up that tough exterior, right, that they learned from their fathers and their grandfathers, right? And they're not dealing with it. And I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking now, just as you're saying this, like depression for men, just men in general, I think would tend to feel that it's more of a weakness to admit it. Not necessarily that it's happening, but it's a weakness to admit it.
Absolutely.
So then it's easier just to pretend like it's not happening, right? And then I have to assume at some point it gets so overwhelming that's when, like, bigger problems arise. But for women, it's okay. And that's probably, I'm just thinking, because that's such a great point that you made. Women, it's okay for women to seem weaker, right? Because that's between men and women. It's more acceptable for women to seem weaker. So it's more acceptable for them to be more vocal about depression, anxiety, and stuff like that affects their livelihood. So that's a great, great point. I wanted to ask too, since we're talking about like the men and women aspect of it, how was your wife receptive to this? Like, how did that, was it something that she didn't understand, or did she not expect it from you? How did that happen, like with your marriage and in that?
Well, I think she kind of knew that something was going on with me, for a few months. But she, until, and it was interesting because as she was saying, why don't you just go to work? Why don't you get a job and things like that? I was thinking, don't you realize what I'm going through? And of course she didn't, because I didn't tell her, right? And right, and it wasn't until I told her what was going on that she did become more supportive, and like she was the one that says, here, call your family doctor now, call this now, right? She took control and said, do it, don't call, right? Don't tell me you'll do it tomorrow, go do it now, right? And so yeah, once she realized what was going on and kind of the severity of it, yeah, she was fully supportive, and right, but it's interesting, like I say again, as men, when we kind of hold it in and hide it, we can't expect others around us to realize what's going on, right? Yeah, sure, some people sometimes they can pick up on some signs, but unless we're willing to open up and say, yeah, here's what's going on, it's hard for people to figure that out. So,
is there, with men in general, like, I mean, I could say, I'm sure anyone could just Google signs for depression, but because I think men are, tend to want to hide it more because they want to be masculine and not necessarily, are there certain signs that like a wife or a partner or, a family member should be looking for? Because you had you just seemed, probably from an outside perspective, you just seemed like you weren't super happy or thrilled with like your work, and, like maybe life was just, it probably just seemed like normal, right? But inside you had a whole bunch of other stuff going on.
Yeah, exactly. And then,
does it bring down to like
the problem is hindsight's always 20/20, right? And it's easy to, even looking back at my own life, right, and going, okay, yeah, that was depression. I couldn't see it even myself at the time, so I'm not sure how anyone else could recognize it. It can be very difficult until it gets so bad, right, that that it becomes apparent, and at that point, it's probably important to seek help quickly, right, because can become quite severe. But I guess the only things we can do are just to continually check in with each other and ask, make sure that our works both ways, right? That our spouses are okay, that things are going well. But yeah, it's really easy to recognize it in hindsight. Yeah. Not so easy to recognize it in the moment, especially when somebody's actively hiding it. Right. Right. I guess one of the things I would pay attention to, and this is from my own experience, is that as it was getting worse, I tried to isolate myself more and more. Right. I would let my wife go to bed and I would fall asleep on the couch watching the ball game. Right. Every night I'd watch the ball game. Right. And I just wanted to be alone. Right. So that's when somebody just continually wants to be alone, that's probably a sign that something's going on. Maybe it's not depression or anxiety, but there's something going on, right? Yeah. So that can be a definite sign that conversation should probably take place. Absolutely.
That's a great point. So let me ask this. Now, you bring meditation into the mix, and do you feel like you have a better grasp on your anxiety and your depression? Because I'm assuming that never goes away, right? Like anxiety, like life circumstances, I think always, and like I said, everyone to some degree, I think like exactly what you're saying, hindsight, I would say, I would have said before that I am not a person that is a depressive person. I'd never experienced being depressed. I'm really laid back. I'm generally not anxious about anything. But looking back into August, some of you guys have heard my story. I totally was depressed, like literally depressed. And it wasn't until I knew something was wrong with me. And I had this thought of like, okay, all of these things that I'm doing, thinking, feeling, this is depression. And I didn't tell anybody that I was feeling that way. I completely hid it. Nobody knew, not even my best friend. I told no one that I was feeling that way. And it wasn't until like I kind of self-diagnosed and figured out what was going on. Then I like told my husband like, oh my God, I've been depressed for a week. I didn't even tell you I was having these crazy thoughts. Like same thing, like kind of, I don't want to say suicidal. Like I wasn't, imagining like how I was going to die, but thinking like, what if I wasn't here? Like those kinds of, thoughts of like, if I'm not on this earth, what will happen to my kids and all that stuff. So I think to some extent, everybody at some point deals with it. There are obviously different levels of anxiety and depression and stuff, but it is easier to look back and recognize it rather than right when you're in it, because it wasn't until I was like, why do I feel this way? And I continuously feel this way. It's going on for at least a couple, close to a couple of weeks at that point. Like I had to stop and really like evaluate myself. But I think it's easy if you're not that self-aware. Maybe sometimes people just keep living in it, and then it becomes just a way of life and then a cycle, right? So I don't even know. It was my own self. I think that's where, for me, it's like hard to, because I have a daughter, also an older daughter. I have 3 kids, and my oldest daughter suffered from anxiety and depression. And I didn't recognize that in her. And it wasn't until after, like when things kind of, as a teenager, spiraled out of control. And it was like, who is this person? What's going on? And then I took her to a doctor for evaluation, and that's when a lot of stuff came out. And she's like, I've always felt like this. I've always, had these kind of feelings and stuff. So it's so hard, I think, you want to help because you don't want anyone that you love to be suffering. We don't want to be suffering as people, right? And hurting, because then it eventually it does. If you don't deal with it or do anything like to work with it, it will just keep coming back, right? So I guess my question, it was a big long one, but circling back with having the meditation, having other tools, sometimes medication is needed. Meditation is awesome. Does it help you? Like, do you see it coming again if it's going to come again? Because and are you able to combat it easier because you have additional tools like meditation and, mantras and stuff like that?
Yeah, great question. I mean, interestingly enough, when I was seeing my therapist, we ended up cutting it 1 session short. I think we had 4 or 5 sessions and we only did 3 or 4, right? She said, I've got nothing left to do with you, right? It was night and day, right? I had started some medication. I was meditating, not as frequently as I should have been at that point, but I was meditating. And I came in and, we had done kind of that assessment, when I first came in about depression and anxiety, like I say, and it showed that I was right there on the cusp of a severe depression. Doing that same questionnaire at the, in that 3rd or 4th session, there was no problems. And I told her, I said, I came in with so much anxiety and whatnot, and I had reached a point within, 2 to 3 weeks where I didn't know how to feel anxious. I honestly didn't know how to feel anxious. And it's so much of that has come from simply trusting the universe and remaining present in this moment, right? And that's what I always try to do. I try to remain present in this moment, right? Not thinking about, not worrying about the future, not regretting the past, but being present right here in this moment. And there's so much peace in being present right here in this moment, right? And I don't necessarily see it coming back. And again, for anybody that's listening to this, thinking about going off their medication, working with my doctor, always let my doctor know what I'm doing. I'm on half the medication now than I was 18 months ago. Thinking about weaning off it completely come spring here. I tend to stay on it in the winter time because I'm living here in Canada. We don't get a whole lot of sunlight. I take my vitamin D every day. The days are short, so we don't get as much daylight as we really need, and it's easy to fall into a depression here in the winter time. But I don't necessarily see it coming back at this point. Like I say, I do need to meditate every day, right? And to continue to remind myself that that I am that universal being. I've got the energy of the universe on my side, and again, it's about letting go of outcomes, right? Let the universe worry about the outcomes. Set your intent with your thoughts, your words, and your actions, and let the universe sort out the rest. And there's so much peace in that, right? And
it's so interesting. That is like I don't know if you guys can see it, but I release the outcome is my first, like one of my first mantras. I keep these affirmations. It's right here. It sits with me. But the very first one on like 6 of them is I release the outcome. And it's all, I mean, it applies to everything. I always just like, it's whatever it is, it's going to be right. And I have no control. If I release control and stop trying to control the outcome in anything. I mean, really with like from the simple little things like my kids and all that, little stuff that they're fighting and whatever, to like really big stuff in life. Like I'm choosing to really just let, God, higher power, source, whatever anyone calls it, control it. And I just need to take that next right step. And there's something so liberating in that. It's probably the most freeing thing I've ever experienced, because we're not taught that. And I think that that's something that this world doesn't teach us to not be in control. It's like we're taught to control everything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. From a very young age, we're taught to plan our future. Yeah. Right. And all too often that's outcome oriented, right? It's okay, you're going to go to school, you're going to get good grades, you're going to get into university, you're going to get a good job, you're going to put all your money away for your retirement, you're going to retire. And
so true. Oh my
right?
gosh. I'm having like a huge like aha moment right now. That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's so much of that is outcome oriented, right? It's not about, right. I mean, and I'm realizing that now as I'm back in school, that the grades will work themselves out if I'm doing my part. Don't worry about them, right? Just read the material, study the material, write the test, set your intent, right? With what you're doing, the grades will take care of themselves. Don't worry about them, right? Those are outcomes.
So good.
So my goal was never to get an A in a course. My goal is to learn the material to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Right? And so again, we just want to control our outlook, be in this moment, and so much.
Uh-oh, you're a little frozen. Let's see if you're going to come back. Am I frozen? You guys let me know if you guys are frozen or if it's just us. I mean, if you see us frozen. Darn it. I hope might be my internet. We have had technical difficulties this morning.
Oh, I think we're back.
Okay, we're back. Was I frozen?
There we go. Yeah, you were frozen too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm back to being unstable again. My internet is having anxiety.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that is such a good point. And you know what, honestly, I needed that message more than anything this morning. Not for anything else, just that a reminder of I need to just do the work and release the outcome. It's like I think that's such a constant reminder of just in general, life in general, but super helpful in people. Like I have a lot of friends who deal with anxiety, and I think anxiety is kind of like the gateway to depression. It kind of is like it leads into it because people can be so anxious, and then they are, the outcome that they're stressing on or that they're anxious about isn't happening. And that's kind of what leads them into that depression, because they're so like bummed that it didn't happen the way it was supposed to. And for me, that's the way I perceive it, I think, because I know a lot of people that deal with it and I see just what's happening. But I think that's such a big tip and a big help in releasing the outcome. How do you teach people to do that? Because I think that's kind of almost like a hard thing. Does meditation help with that? Like these other tools that you're using, these spiritual tools, like really feeding your soul. Does that help in that? Is that what really is the helper of getting out of that depression, anxiety, because you're feeding these other parts of you that are understanding like the truth,
Yeah, I think that's really the key. And then, yeah, for me, it all started with the meditation, right? I think once we actually take those few moments to quiet our mind and one of the things I like to do sometimes is just ask myself the 3 soul questions. Who am I? What do I want? And how can I serve, right? And the answers don't always come right away, but the answers come in the universe's time. And I think you're frozen again. I don't know. No, actually, no, we're good. All right. You were just really still. um, but um, yeah, the universe, the answers will come in the universe's time. But once we start meditating, like I say, once I started meditating, I realized that I was more than my mind, right? There was that consciousness as well. And, the so-called higher self. And my degree, well, my first degree is in philosophy. I've been, exploring the big questions for a long time. And, for a while, I was an atheist. But I, once I started exploring myself more deeply, I couldn't not recognize that there was a bigger thing in play there, right? The energy of the universe, right? Whether, when we talk about, the ocean is in a drop of water, right? The entire ocean is in one drop of the ocean. It's the same for us, right? The entire universe, right, is within us as well, right? We're all made from the same energy, right? The only thing that, right, everything is energy. And through high school, I was the science guy. Science is important to me. The one thing I know for sure is that everything is energy. Einstein, E equals MC squared, right? Everything is energy. And like I say, as I meditated more and more and really opened my mind and became open to those truths, yeah. It became so apparent to me that there was more, that the universe is there, and as Gabrielle Bernstein said, the universe has your back, right? So yeah, that's kind of where it's at.
Do you think that meditation should be anyone who is like dealing with anxiety, depression, who's on medication? Do you think that like meditation should be prescribed, like should be tried? Everyone should try it especially if they're dealing with depression, anxiety. What do you think about that?
Well, I every case is different. I don't want to tread on, what one patient's doing with their doctor. But having said that, what I can say from my own personal experience is that the meditation allowed me to survive, but the meditation allowed me to thrive, right? So I think I don't think it's wise, from a layperson's perspective anyways, to just prescribe medication. I don't think it's going to, right? We're not depressed because we have a lack of this medication, right? It's not, right? And that's with a lot of the medications we take today, whether, we don't have high blood pressure because we're lacking this medication. We don't have depression because we're lacking this medication. So while I think medication can play a role, I think it's really important to meditate, right? To go within, right? As Laura Ann told us there a few days ago, begin within. I love that. That's awesome.
So good.
Right. And but as well, not just the meditation, right? Exercise, right? Our take care of this body, right? It's how our soul is, and how the universe is experiencing, this world, right? This incarnation, right? Take care of this body so that you can have those experiences, right? Exercise, eat well, right? There's so many factors in play there, right? A few years back, I gave up dairy, right? I went through years and years having stomach problems from the time I was about 18. Some of it was probably brought on by binge drinking, right? I spent far too many years, drinking 3 nights a week, and binge drinking and drinking way too much alcohol. And I don't drink at all now. I started, once I had kids, I hardly drank at all. I never wanted to be in a situation where somebody clunked their head off the coffee table and I had 2 or 3 beer and couldn't drive them someplace if I had to. So I might have had one once in a while. And then actually about I can't even tell you the day that I last had a beer, but it's been now probably about 18 months or so since I last had any alcohol. But going back a little further, kind of going, I get off on a tangent there, but going back, I mean, like I say, I was popping antacids constantly had a pack in my pocket. My gut felt like crap. And I finally got tired of feeling like crap. And I gave up dairy. I mean, and it was a personal health choice at that time. It just kind of made sense to me when somebody pointed out that we were the only, species that drank the milk from another species. I said, well, there's something to that, right? So I gave it up, and almost immediately started feeling better. And once I did that, right, we don't, and you touched on this earlier, we don't sometimes realize how bad we feel till we start to feel better. It just becomes our normal, right? And once I did that, I started recognizing times when, I'd eat something else, like ham or processed meats and bacon. I said, geez, I don't feel very well after I eat that. So I gave that up. I gave up pork and processed meats as well. And again, for my own health reasons. But then as I got on this spiritual journey and it just became more and more self-aware and more aware of the energy and the consciousness within the world, I knew at some point I was going to probably become a vegetarian. And it happened actually almost a year ago. I think it was in May last year. I'd gone to the supermarket with the kids, and I went to pick up a pack of crab meat, and my youngest child asked me something about the lobsters that were sitting over in the lobster tank, and I went over to take a look, and I saw them in there crawling around on top of each other and looking at with their beady little black eyes, and my heart sunk. That was it. I put the crab meat back, and that was it. I couldn't do it. So I've been a vegetarian now for like I say, about 8 months or so, and I forget what your original question was now, but I don't know if I answered it or not. I can't hear you, Monique.
I was saying that is so awesome, and I don't even know I don't even know what the question was at this point. So rad, first of all, because I'm like right along with you in that same kind of journey. I mean, I stopped drinking 8 years ago now. But so that was like that was completely separate, not related. I mean, again, in hindsight, looking back, it was related to my journey, my spiritual journey, my greater purpose and calling. But at the time I just made a bargain with God, right? So that was like a different story, different time. But in this, I really think, and I'm so glad you touched on the nutrition and the exercise part of this too, and like really whole health consciousness, because it combats so much of that stuff, like the depression, the anxiety, like I think all of that stuff that we put in our body that we've, again, been conditioned to because the world teaches us that we need to eat these things and consume these things, but it affects us so greatly. I mean, mentally, mental clarity. When I did a 21-day cleanse last spring also for Mother's Day. That's what the only thing I asked for Mother's Day was 21-day cleanse. And I asked my husband I asked him to do it with me together. So we went, it was like it slowly removed everything from your system. So by the end of the week, the 3 weeks, you were completely plant-based, and then you slowly start reintroducing everything. Well, I've been off of dairy. I'm lactose intolerant anyways, so I recognize that in my body. So I got rid of dairy years and years ago. So that was an easy thing for me. But my body, as I continued along my own journey, was like slowly just, I had like an aversion to meat out of nowhere. Like I just didn't even want it or crave it. Chicken, which I loved. I was like, I would eat chicken, everything. I couldn't even touch chicken anymore. Like I didn't even want to cook it. It like just grossed me out. So then I'm like, I just want to take everything out and see how I feel. And then it was really me getting to know my body, not necessarily about any outside circumstances, not about the way animals are processed or anything like that. It was just me getting to know my body. But I think, and we're going way off, but I think that really going vegetarian or even vegan, because we went vegan for quite a few months, like completely vegan. And I think that really, really catapulted my spiritual awakening, because it was just a few months after that where really, I mean, the whole like gateway was opened, and very clearly I heard God tell me what my next steps were and what my true calling was. And so I think that that's such a huge huge pivotal point in just in whole health wellness in general. Like really, and I'm not saying being a vegetarian or vegan is for everybody, because, you know, again, it's all personal decisions and personal choices, but I think it's super important for people who want to take their spiritual journey to the next level, just to get down to that, like, bring yourself back to the way we were created, which is just nothing plant-based. You know what I mean? Like that's what God created us to consume. We consume everything else because that's what's there now. But that really, it's like becoming whole again and who we were created to be. And then figuring out what we can, because again, we still live in this world, you know, nobody's perfect. I still eat crap sometimes, but you know, deciding when we want to feel that way or when we're going to, you know, put that stuff in us again. I think that was such a good point, because I was more mentally clear, more relaxed, less anxious when I removed a lot of that processed stuff and processed meats and just processed food in general. I felt the best that I've ever felt physically. And then it just opened for me, amplified everything else, like my mental clarity, my spiritual journey, like it was hugely a huge part. And that's like a big part of what I teach my clients too, because I think it's so important. But I think it's really directly correlated to a lot of the depression and anxiety personally.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually that reminded me what your original question was, you know, you think that people should be prescribed meditation in addition to the medication. And it reminds me of something my therapist told me actually as we were going through it. And she said, I hate it when doctors just prescribe medication and don't do anything else. Right. And, right. Cause yeah, it all comes together. Right. And again, I think medication has a role to play. You know, especially, right, because especially kind of going back to the original analogy, right? We can't meditate a broken arm, right? So, like, you know, I'm not at that point yet. I don't think it's impossible, but I'm not at that point yet. And I'm also, you know, when you're in the throes of that deep, severe depression, you're not at the point where you're just going to meditate it away. It's not going to happen, right? So I think medication has a role to play, but as well, absolutely the meditation, the eating well, and the exercise as well, right? And it's about getting in touch with your soul and your body, right? And you know, and like just getting in touch with how you feel. I'm the same way. I'm not going to tell anybody that. Actually, somebody asked me about this the other day about whether I'd recommend a vegetarian or a vegan diet. I said I would never recommend it, but I think everyone in their own time will reach that same decision, right? We're all at kind of different spots in our journey, right? And you can't fast forward someone, right? They're going to get there in their own time, right? Exactly. I think we'll all get there in our own time, but for me to recommend it to someone right now that's not ready, right? They'll know when they're ready, right? So right, they'll get there.
Yeah.
Right. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have in like a specific beginners like Sanskrit meditation or something like that you would recommend for anybody that's watching that maybe, you know, wants to start like using meditation along with that, or to kind of help with their anxiety or depression? Like I actually know people who aren't on medication who they know that they, you know, suffer from anxiety frequently. So maybe this could just be a helpful tool for them, you know?
Absolutely. And this kind of touches on a little bit of what you were saying earlier about anxiety leading to depression, right? I think that's completely valid, right? Because anxiety tends to be future-based. We're worried about what's going to happen. Right. And then when it didn't go our way, we become depressed about it. Depression is you know, past-based, right? And that's kind of how that works. But there's some great resources out there. I mean, I highly recommend any of David G's work. He's fantastic for beginners. And I can post a link to his Facebook page within the comments there as well. What I love about David G is that one of the first things he'll tell you is that there's no wrong way to meditate, right? And so many people get caught up with oh, I'm not doing it right, and I can't quiet my mind, right? Meditation is not for me. I can't quiet my mind. It's one of the biggest objections you'll hear, right? And and it's a myth, right? It's anyone can meditate, right? Because there's three things that will happen when you meditate, right? You're going to have thoughts. You're not going to eliminate thoughts. You're going to have them. You're going to have sensations. You're going to have itches. You're going to have aches. If you have an ache when you're meditating, move your leg, move your arm, scratch the itch. It's okay, right? And you're gonna hear sounds. You're gonna hear things going around you, right? And each time you have a thought, each time you hear a sound, each time you have a bodily sensation, either come back to your breath if that's what you're following, or come back to your mantra if that's what you're doing, right? There's no wrong way to meditate. If you sit down with the intent to meditate, you're doing it right. One of the other things that David G will say is, if you're trying too hard, right? If you don't try to meditate, just do it, right? Just sit down. And one of the easiest things to do, absolutely, is just to follow your breath. And I think you had mentioned this the other day as well, right? So count, just sit there and count your breaths, right? And it can't help but bring you to the moment, right? And so just, count one on the inhale and out and two on the exhale, and just count to 10 that way. One of my, so I highly recommend all of David G's work. He's amazing. And like I say, he's so good with beginners because he stresses that, there's no wrong way to meditate. Comfort is queen, he says, just be comfortable and keep coming back, right? And a couple of my favorite Sanskrit mantras that I tend to use every morning are either Sat, Chit, Ananda. I am truth, I am all knowing, I am bliss. The other one being Om, Shanti, Ananda, and Om is just the universal vibration. Shanti being peace, and Ananda again being bliss. Love those two. I'll often just sit for 5 minutes meditating with those. That's what I've been doing recently. Is sitting for 5 minutes with those, and then starting my self-Reiki treatment after that. And then sometimes I'll continue putting my mantra meditation through the Reiki, self-Reiki as well. And for anyone that's having trouble sleeping, and I love this one, right? It's so simple, and I think Gabrielle Bernstein mentions it as the one that she started with, right? The so hum, right? So as you're breathing in through your nose, and hum as you're breathing out through your nose, and it kind of mimics the sound that makes as you're breathing in and breathing out. And I recommended this to some people there recently that were having some trouble sleeping. I said, lay down and repeat so on your in-breath and hum on your out-breath. And your mind's going to drift. Just keep coming back to it, and you will fall back asleep. You will. If you keep coming back to it, you will fall back asleep. And I do it myself sometimes because, we have a wood stove during the winter, and sometimes I'll get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to put more wood in it. But at that point, I've slept for 4, 5, 6 hours. So sometimes it's hard to get back to sleep because I'm kind of rested at that point. So, and I'll do it myself and just lay there with that soul hum meditation, and within 10, 15 minutes, I'm back asleep, right? And it just gives your mind something else to do, right? Rather than race through your chores for the day or your regrets from yesterday. Right. And, right. So, so those are, again, I think for anybody just starting, one of the easiest things they can do is follow their breath. But, there's some fantastic meditation guides out there, some folks that are more than willing to teach you with so many free resources and so giving of their time. And the thing is, keep looking until you find someone that's right for you as well, right? Because not every meditation teacher is going to resonate with everyone else, right? I don't want to single out Gabrielle, but I can't listen to her meditations. I just can't. They don't work for me. I've tried and they just don't resonate with me. And I know other people I think they're fantastic, which is awesome. And that's fine. That's why it's important that we're all here getting the message out, right? Because, what one spiritual teacher may resonate with a certain audience, and then another spiritual teacher may resonate with another audience. And, I was thrilled to have this opportunity to come out and speak because I'm hoping that, some men are going to see it. And I know I'm sure it's going to help some women as well, but I'm hoping that some men are going to see it and know that that there's some help out there, and that they can overcome things that they're going through. Right. So it's important that we're all out there, spreading the message and about being spiritual and the importance of meditation. Absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That's why I was so excited when you volunteered to speak today, because even in general, I think just in the spiritual community, it's a very female dominated community in general. And I think it's
Yeah.
amazing that you're spreading the word, the light, all of your teachings, everything that you're learning, and really just opening up this platform for men in a bigger way. It's amazing. So thank you for that. I just wanted to read a couple of comments. Andy Love is here. Andrea Lucchese. She's my spiritual coach and mentor, which is awesome. It's funny. When I saw her, she said that she loves that how you said, if you're trying too hard. So true.
Yeah.
But she mentioned on a call one time that I was with her, and she was talking about meditating, and she said, I think someone asked her like what her daily routine is, what her daily practices were. And she said that she lays in bed in the morning, and that's where she does her meditation. She doesn't even get up out of bed. I wanted to get back to that point when you were kind of, giving your tips and your favorites and stuff, that it doesn't. And I think even when I was beginning, like a year and a half ago, starting meditation, I, same thing, just kind of Googled all the resources, started looking at all kinds of, listening to different videos, guided meditations. And I almost felt you can do it anywhere. You can be anywhere. You can be sitting anywhere. I mean, literally, you can be in public and meditate. You can meditate anywhere. So it doesn't have to be, I think people get caught up in the how to, and that you have to have this special little spot, and you have to have the perfect little cushion, and you have to sit in your little thing, which is great for people that have that space and that need that space, but we don't need it. It's just like anything, just start and get started. And when Andy said that she lays in bed and meditates in the morning, I'm like, that sounds so good and comfortable and amazing. And so I tried it, and it's the perfect thing to do, because I'm the person. And I think it's a personal thing. Again, it's get comfortable and personal with meditating, because I like to lay in bed and wake up. I'm not the person, my husband will just pop up and start going and start his day. He doesn't want to lounge in bed. I'm the person that wants to lay in bed. So it works for me. It's perfect. And when she said that, I'm like, that's brilliant. That's so good. And then you said going to sleep meditating. That's one of my favorite ways to put myself to sleep now. Because I'm like, if I can do this in the morning and it works, I can probably do it at night and it works. And it's
absolutely
it's the yummiest feeling ever. It's so good to meditate to sleep. Love it. So I love that you mentioned that, because I don't want people who are, who've tried it, don't give up. Just like Robert's saying, don't give up. Try many different aspects, try many different teachers, listen to many guided meditations, listen to ones that just have music, try all the things and fit what fits, what's comfortable, what feels good for you, and what works for you, because it's everything, that's, I think, exactly what you said. That's why there are so many teachers. That's why there are so many, people who put their meditations and stuff out, because it will resonate with some people and it won't for others. But that's the whole point, is that we have all these tools and resources to really amplify our life, so that it's at we're raising the vibration, not only for ourselves, but for the world, and really truly living the way that God created us and called us to live, which is in our truest form, in our happiest and most joyful self, So use the resources, you guys. Don't give up. Like Robert said, just keep trying them. If it doesn't feel good, don't say, oh, meditation isn't for me, because I really think that it can be for everybody. You just have to kind of find which one works and feels good for you. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, as I mentioned, I had tried it several times before it finally stuck. Right. And one thing I will say is that if you want it, if you're going to do it every day, make it part of your ritual. Right. It's got to be, you won't leave the house in the morning without brushing your teeth or taking your shower. Don't leave the house in the morning without meditating as well. Make it part of your morning routine. And the staying in bed thing's great, but it also reminded me about something that David G says. He says to make meditation part of your morning ritual, he said use the RPM acronym. Rise, pee, meditate. Right. So right. So that was it. Right. So do it before you get up. Pee, meditate. Right. So
I like that. I'll have to try that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, but because And that was one of my problems when I first started meditating was, and even, I was getting up at 5 a.m., but what I'd start doing was going, okay, well, if I get everything ready now, I'll have time to meditate after. I'd always try to get ahead of the day, so to
Right.
speak. And when you do it that way, you'll never get ahead of the day. There's always something else to do. If you're going to meditate every day, you have to make it a priority.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the one thing I will say, that is, if you're going to do it every day, make it a priority, make it a part of your ritual. But as you mentioned, don't become discouraged when it doesn't work out that way for the first little while. Just keep coming back to it, and it will. Right. It'll become a habit. It'll become something that you look forward to as part of your day as well. Right. Like I mentioned, I at one time I couldn't have imagined getting up at 5 a.m. every morning, but sometimes now I roll over at 4:15 and think, that's late enough. I'm getting up, right? And because I look forward to going and meditating, right? And so, yeah, absolutely.
It is. It becomes something that you crave. Like I crave it, especially even later during the day. Sometimes I'm like, I really just need to go meditate right now. Like I just need to like bring myself back to center again. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody has questions, definitely post them or comments. Let us know. Thanks for watching and hanging out with us this long. So I want to just ask you if you have, I wrote a lot, you have such amazing like quotes and stuff like that. So do you have a favorite quote or favorite mantra or favorite anything that you want to share with everybody that they can kind of hold on to or use?
It's not specifically related to meditation, but it's something that I come to know through meditation, and it's something that occurred to me during a session with one of my coaches, and I've got it on my website now. And it's simply that we are all representing our oneness with our uniqueness, right? And I've got that quote now on my website. I've got it on my Facebook page. It kind of came to me in a moment of inspiration, so to speak, right? There are no others, right? We're all one, right? We all come from the same energy, but we're all unique as well. We're all right here so that the universe can experience our uniqueness. So, right, and this kind of comes back to, right, the universe doesn't want us to play small, and that's what we do when we're depressed or anxious, right? I mean, I remember when I was selling antivirus over the phone and having this feeling of dread in my gut every time, the chime would go off on my laptop saying, here's somebody you can call and solve the software. And, the anxiety will take over if you allow it to, the depression, it can, like I say, cause us to isolate ourselves and to not go out and live fully. Where none of us are meant to do that. We're all meant to go out and live large and allow the universe to experience itself fully through us, right? We are the universe, and we are the universal energy in human form. And like I say, that one quote, it's kind of one that I came up with, and it's that we're all representing our oneness with our uniqueness.
Love it.
And right, and only love is real, right?
Yep,
so
right.
yeah.
Only love is real. And I tell my kids all the time, choose love. We choose love.
Yeah, choose love, right? That's what it comes down to. And when we recognize that we're all one, there are no others, right? There's nothing else to do but choose love, right? Because when we don't choose love, we're not loving ourselves either, right? So.
Well, this has been amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your light. Thank you for being a light. Like seriously, you taught me so much in this. So thank you for sharing. I really appreciate you being here. And again, if you guys have questions, comments, just drop them below. Like I said, we're open books and we'll definitely pop in to see what your questions were, answer anything like that. But thank you for spending part of your afternoon with us. So grateful for you being in this group and for your teachings. Thank you. That's it. That's all we got.
Well, thank you as well, Monique. I just so grateful for the opportunity, and had somebody told me, 2 years ago that I'd be, telling others about the benefits of meditation and going on this kind of group call and this talk to share with others, I was, no, it's not going to happen. Right? And the universe has a plan, trust it. And, right, and Andy, who jumped on, Andy's amazing. And I've met so many amazing people through her group. And so grateful for all these groups, like I say, where I've been welcomed so openly. And so grateful for everyone that's listening, and so grateful for the work that you're doing with these talks that you're doing. It's just amazing.
Thank you. We're so grateful you guys spent your time with us. Thanks for popping in, and we'll be back tomorrow with another awesome interview. So have a great day, everybody. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Awesome. Bye.